Hello again. This is your teacher, Rodolfo Eric Angat. So today we'll be learning about the different types of rocks. There are three types of rocks. We have the igneous, sedimentary, and the metamorphic rocks. For the igneous, our examples for this type of rock are granite, scoria, pumice, and obsidian. This pumice is an extrusive igneous rock, and we know that it is an extrusive igneous rock because it has a lot of pores, which is an evidence that it cooled very fast. Same with the scoria. It also has a lot of pores, which is also an evidence that it cooled very fast. Another Another evidence that these two are extrusive igneous rock is that you can barely see their crystals, like this one and this one. Granite is an intrusive igneous rock because it doesn't have those holes, and the crystals are very evident. They're big, like this white crystal here. And we'll be learning about the different minerals in granite soon. Now, giving those evidences like these two, you can barely see the crystals, but they are there, and that they have a lot of holes. And this one, it's very solid, and the crystals are very evident. The white one, the brownish one, and then the dark black one, which are right there. What kind of an igneous rock is the obsidian? It's glassy. Okay, so that's a challenge for you. But of course, you'll be learning this as we go on. So again, these are extrusive rocks, and this is an intrusive rock, the two types of igneous rock. Let's now go to the sedimentary rocks. Example of sedimentary rocks are the sandstone, limestone, shale, conglomerate, and gypsum. One thing that you have probably noticed is the mixture of different sediments here, a mixture of different kinds of small rocks as if they've been cemented together. We call that a conglomerate rock. The last type of rock are the metamorphic rocks. Examples of metamorphic rocks are marble, slate, quartzite, and gneiss. So these are the three types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. How are these rocks formed? So in order for us to learn how these rocks are formed, let us go to the rock cycle. So this is the rock cycle, and as you can see, it's a cycle. It has a lot of arrows, and the arrows goes around and goes from one type of rock to another type of rock. Basically, any type of rock can become any other type of rock depending upon what happens to it. Again, any type of rock can become any other type of rock, like sedimentary can become metamorphic. Metamorphic can become sedimentary. Sedimentary can become igneous. Igneous can become sedimentary. Igneous can become metamorphic. So it all depends on the process that happens to it. If heat and pressure happens to a certain type of rock, like for example, a sedimentary rock is exposed to heat and pressure, the sedimentary rock becomes a metamorphic rock. Okay. Now, look at this arrow here, this red arrow here, igneous, it becomes a metamorphic. It's the same thing. If heat and pressure happens to an igneous rock, it becomes a metamorphic rock. Okay. Now, if heat and pressure happens to a metamorphic rock, then it stays as a metamorphic rock. How about weathering, erosion, transport, and deposition. So this is another set of processes that can happen to any type of rock. If an igneous rock is exposed to weathering, erosion, transport, deposition, and there are others like lithification, compaction, then the igneous rock can become sedimentary. If the metamorphic rock is exposed to weathering, erosion, transport, deposition, lithification, compaction, then the metamorphic can become a sedimentary rock. Now, when can a rock become an igneous rock? An igneous rock is formed by burial and extreme heat, and the rock becomes magma, which means the rock becomes liquid. So it gets melted. Not necessarily as liquid as water, but it's more fluid. That would be safer to say. So when a rock melts into magma and then it cools down, then it becomes igneous rock. A sedimentary rock that is melted and turned into magma and then cooled, it becomes an igneous rock. Same as a metamorphic rock. If a metamorphic rock is turned into magma or melted into magma because of extreme heat, then when it cools down, it forms an igneous rock. So you might be asking, how can that be? Now, this is another illustration. Remember the keywords: melting, cooling, becomes igneous. Weathering and lithification turn a rock into sediment. Compaction and cementation turn the sediment into a sedimentary rock. So weathering, lithification, compaction, cementation, these are processes that gives you an idea that a rock is turning into a sedimentary rock. Now, how about heat and pressure? What will happen to a rock when it is exposed to heat and pressure? It becomes a metamorphic rock. Just follow where the arrow is pointing. Heat and pressure becomes metamorphic rock. Look at this one. An igneous rock is exposed to heat and pressure. Look at the arrow. Heat and pressure happens to an igneous rock going to this one. So what will happen to the igneous rock? It becomes a metamorphic rock. Look at the metamorphic rock. It gets melted. It turned to magma. It cooled down. What happened to the metamorphic rock? Follow the arrow. It becomes an igneous rock. Okay, melting and cooling turns to igneous rock. So you need to remember the keywords. So you might be asking, how can a rock get melted? One way for a rock to get melted is to remember, first we have to remember that the earth is broken into large pieces like a cracked eggshell. These are called the tectonic plates. We have a lot of tectonic plates on earth, but the major tectonic plates are, example, the North American plate is a major tectonic plate. Of course, there are smaller tectonic plates within it, but generally it is one of the biggest one. Okay, the African plate is a very big one too. Of course, the biggest one is what's the largest continent on Earth? We'll be learning that soon. And we'll also be discovering the biggest tectonic plate on Earth. Hopefully, you can answer that when we discuss about this. Now, the tectonic plates are really just pieces of cool shell that floats on hot, dense layer. How are the continents moving? It's because of the convection currents in the mantle, as it says here. This is a very good web page. I'm just borrowing it. Okay, so this is the convection currents here in the mantle. And this is what is happening in convergent boundaries between continental plate and oceanic plate. The oceanic plate is more dense, so when the two converge what happens is that the denser oceanic plate sinks into the mantle and gets melted. The melted rocks turn into magma, and since they are lighter now because they're very hot, the magma rises into the surface, turns into volcano, and guess what type of rock is formed here? Igneous rock, because the rocks got melted, and then when they reach the surface, they cool and solidifies into new rocks. Of course, some rocks also solidify here. These are what we call the intrusive igneous rock. Now, the rocks that solidify or cools down and solidify on the surface, we call them extrusive igneous rock. This is another area where igneous rocks formed in the divergent boundary. And divergent boundary is most prominent in the Atlantic Ocean in the area called mid-ocean ridge. So here, young rocks are being formed, and we call those igneous rocks. And this is another example. This is what we call the subduction area. Okay. See that all the pressure happening in the subduction, this is where heat and pressure is very, very high. So what kind of rock can be formed in a place where there's a lot of heat and pressure? You are right, metamorphic rocks. However, when it reaches this one, the rock here gets melted, and once that magma cools down, what kind of rock will be formed? Correct, it's igneous rock. So heat and pressure form the metamorphic rock, but when the rock gets melted and becomes magma and the magma cools, what is formed is igneous rock. Now, another type of process that can form the rock is called weathering. And weathering is mostly affected by temperature and moisture. In areas where it's warm and humid or hot and wet, weathering is happening very fast. That is where rocks break in the fastest manner. Weathering and the other processes like weathering, erosion, compaction, lithification, they are all responsible for the formation of what kind of rock? Very good. Sedimentary rocks. So hopefully this help you have an idea what the rock cycle is all about. Just to summarize, weathering, lithification, compaction, cementation form sedimentary rocks. So if you hear the word lithification, the rock that is formed is sedimentary rock. If you hear heat and pressure, no melting, that is metamorphic rock. If you hear extreme heat and there is melting and cooling, then that is how igneous rock form. Hopefully you've learned enough, and I hope you can answer the questions that I ask you later or that I've asked you earlier. So see you again next time. Bye-bye.